This Week in Startups is brought to you by Embroker. The Embroker Startup Insurance Program helps startups secure the most important lines of insurance at a lower cost and with less hassle. Get an instant quote and $5,000 of AWS credit at embroker.com/twist. NetSuite by Oracle, the business management software that handles every aspect of your business in an easy-to-use cloud platform. Get NetSuite's free guide, 7 Key Strategies to Grow Your Profits, when you go to netsuite.com/twist. And LinkedIn. You need LinkedIn jobs to find the right people for your business. Post a job today at linkedin.com/unicorn and get $50 off your first job post.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. We're running our special series where we try to predict and figure out who will be the next unicorns, or as we say here in Silicon Valley, the Soonicorns. They will soon be unicorns. What's a unicorn? If you're new to the technology industry, a unicorn is a company with a value of $1 billion or greater. That's what the company becomes worth. Now, that doesn't mean it's their revenue. Revenue for a unicorn tends to be maybe 1/10 or 1/20th of the billion-dollar valuation. So somebody with a $50 million run rate, a $100 million run rate, the run rate means if you took what they made this month and you times it by 12, that's their run rate. So when you hit $1 million a month, you're making $12 million a year. If you hit $2 million, you're making $24. But lo and behold, if you start making $4 million a month and you start hitting that $48 million a year, depending on the speed of the growth, if you're doubling every 6 months or a year or 2 years, depending on the acceleration, you could become worth $1 billion. Why is that important? It's not. It's an arbitrary number that we came up with in the industry just to indicate that these companies were hitting a meaningful amount of scale. What does the word scale mean? You're probably wondering. Scale means it's not a small business. It's reached some level where we know that it's having a major impact in the world. So Uber in 1 or 2 cities, not at scale yet. Hits 10, 20 cities, now we start talking about Uber being at scale. Com.com having 1,000 or 10,000 subscribers, very interesting, something I might look at as an angel investor. In fact, I did. But when you start to see Com.com have 1 million subscribers and they start making over $100 million a year, they become a unicorn and they've hit that scale. And that's the name of the game for investors and founders. It doesn't mean that if a business is not worth $1 billion, that it's not a legitimate business. There are plenty of great businesses like that. Sometimes they're referred to as lifestyle businesses, sometimes just small to medium-sized enterprises. But here in Silicon Valley, we're here to grow the companies, and we want to have companies that have a big global impact. And I'm really excited about today's company because I use it at my companies. I know a lot of companies that do use it. It's called Checkr. That's the name of the company, Checkr, Checkr without the E, which is how we used to do naming in Silicon Valley. We ran out of domain names, so Flickr just dropped the E, and they were Flickr, and then everybody copied it by removing the vowels. And the founder is Daniel Yanisse. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Daniel Yanisse, welcome to This Week in Startups.
Thank you, Jason.
Congratulations on the great success of Checkr. Explain to people what Checkr is and how you came up with the idea for Checkr.
Yes, absolutely. So I came up with the idea for Checkr because I worked in other startups in the past. And so especially in the gig economy, I was working in the early days of the gig economy before Uber and Lyft were at scale. I really like your definition of the businesses. That was super clear.
Yeah.
And we needed to hire a lot of workers to do deliveries. And the background check was one of the bottlenecks in the process to do a background checks. I looked at the different options and I realized that there was a pretty antiquated, archaic industry, more like service industry, not really the software products available. And so that's how I got the idea. I was like, I think a lot of companies are going to need more background checks, more streamlined and automated background checks. I think that's an opportunity to disrupt an industry that hasn't been touched by software. And so that's how we came up with Checkr, which was the first API for background checks.
And when you say API, for people who don't know what that means?
So API is application programming interface.
Yeah.
So it's a way for computers to communicate with each other. And there are many, today if you want to create your startups, you're going to use different building blocks. You can use Twilio to send text messages or automate phone calls. Yeah. Great. You can use Stripe to accept payments, and you can use Checkr to create background checks in your application.
And it costs about $20, $40 to check somebody's background?
Yeah, in that range. It depends on the type of background check and the volume you do, but that's right, yes.
And it's a very delicate subject, giving people storage space through an API like Amazon Web Services does with their storage and provisioning another server. Well, there's not much emotionally involved in that. Just another server, just a little bit of storage space. But when you start getting to checking people's background, this is an invasive process. It is a very personal process. And so this was, when you started the company in 2014, I'm assuming investors thought this was not possible as an API, or that it was too messy of a business to be involved in. Am I right?
You're 100% right. It is absolutely a sensitive business because, it's not just transaction, it's human lives that we're touching and real people that we're, sharing information about. And you're also right that it's a very messy business and operation. It's very manual. It used to be very manual, done by humans, outsourced in other countries.
What would they do in the old days, 10 years ago, if I said, I want to do a background check? Who would I call? How much would I pay them? And then what would they do in that alchemy, that background that I wasn't able to do myself?
Yeah, so 10, 20 years ago, you would almost call someone like a private investigator, like a PI. They would have connections with some, courthouses and some maybe databases and third-party companies that have information. They would try to collect as much information as they can on your name, on Jason, and then they would curate that into, a report that they would sell to you for a lot of money, for maybe, $50, $100, $200.
Wow. So you spend hundreds of dollars. They would search databases and then make a report. I'm assuming some of those databases were, have I ever been in a lawsuit? Have I been sued before? Do I have any complaints against me? But also, are employers looking for criminal backgrounds? Is that the majority of what people want to know? They're trying to protect their downside so they don't make a mistake of hiring a felon like I did in the past.
So it is the core product in background checks is definitely the criminal check. So, checking criminal history and records for a candidate, for an applicant, to mitigate risk, with your company and your brand. But there are also other products in the background check, things like driving records, very important for driving jobs.
How do you get those? You just California DMV lets you search?
Yes.
Do you need permission to search that?
Yes. So for all background checks, for employment and job purposes, which is what we do, you need consent and permission from the consumer.
Got it.
So we do collect consent that is compliant. It's a very regulated process in industry, and so we do collect consent on every single background check from the applicants.
You came into this with Checkr with no experience in having done it.
Zero.
And you created what is now the leading company to do this. What did you have to learn, and how did you go about learning it? Did you hire people who worked at those other things? Did you get a consultant who was a private investigator? How did you start that journey of creating a company where you had zero knowledge of the industry?
Yes. So I started on Google.
Okay.
With my co-founder.
What's Google? How does that work? Just type in a box or something? It is interesting when you think about it. Sometimes the best founders are the ones who don't know anything about the
I think that was helpful. I think we were so naive. We had no idea how a background check works, what's in it. I've never seen my own background check.
You had fresh eyes.
Idea. Fresh eyes. And I think the fresh eyes really helped us build it in a completely different way. And a few years later, when we realized how the other companies were doing it, we were shocked because it was so inefficient and manual and not automated.
Got it.
But we did that because over time we discovered where the data is, how it works, what are the regulations, and we wrote software to solve those problems.
Now, when you go to do that search at the DMV, I guess, they have a database where people can search, or you have to call them? How does that work exactly? Just to take one small example of, can I just go check when I meet somebody who's going to come work for me? Can I do that myself and just go to a database and see if they have any driving violations?
You could, but it would take you, years because there's thousands of data sources. So every DMV in each state, every state database, every courthouse in every county, there's 3,000 counties in the US, You have the federal courts as well. It's such a complex and fragmented legal system, which is part of the states and the justice system in the US, that it would take literally, hundreds of hours to go in at that resource. And
so you put all those together.
Exactly.
All right. When we get back from this quick break, I want to try to understand what happens if you get the information wrong. So you look for a common name, because you do hear about this with the no-fly list. Somebody will have a name. Maybe it's a name of a Muslim name or an Islamic name, and all of a sudden they get banned from flying because somebody else had the same name who maybe had bad intent. You might have somebody who wants to drive for Uber or DoorDash. They have a similar name. How do you protect against getting a false positive when we get back on This Week in Startups? I want to tell you right now about the importance of insurance for your business. It's never too soon. When you have a startup, you need to have insurance. And I know what you're saying. God, you got to deal with those brokers. God, they're a pain in the neck and they're annoying and the process takes forever. No longer. You can use Embroker, E-M-B-R-O-K-E-R, Embroker, and they will do all of this quickly and easily for you. And the Embroker Startup Program is essentially free business insurance because it comes with $5,000 in AWS credits. That's right. They will give you $5,000 in AWS credits if you do the right thing and get your insurance all set up. You can get things like D&O, that's directors and officers. Directors, your board of directors, people on your board, officers, the top 5 or 6 people in the company who could go to jail or get sued if you do stupid things or if you make a mistake or if you do everything right and some litigious person decides to sue you anyway. You have that D&O, you're covered, and you need to get D&O, and you also need E&O. What's E&O? Errors and omissions. You make an error, you made an omission, and all of a sudden, you get sued. And you know what? Sometimes you can't close a big deal or get a big-time board member if you don't have these insurance policies in place. So you can instantly buy custom-built insurance for your startup right now and get $5,000 in AWS credits for free, even if you're already an AWS client. And you can do that by going to embroker.com/twist, embroker.com/twist, EMBROKER.com/twist. It's a great product. The founder is Aces, really great guy, super smart. And this product is so elegant and so fast at getting you your insurance. I can't give it anything more than my 5-star JCal review. Go to embroker.com, embroker.com/twist. Great product, great team. All right, let's get back to this great episode. All right, welcome back to This Week in Startups. It's our Next Unicorns edition. And today's Soonicorn, we believe, is Daniel Yanisse, who is the CEO and co-founder of Checkr, Checkr.com. It's an API. You hit it for $20, $40 or more, depending on the depth. What's the highest, deepest?
You can go
cost?
Up to $60, $80 if you want to really everything comprehensive.
Got it. And so when we left you before the break, we were talking about the false positive. I think this is the big fear in background checks. Somebody loses an opportunity for a gig, and let's face it, people who are in the gig economy, they need the job because those are the jobs that are, sort of the safety net of society, I think, right now, right? These are the jobs that anybody can do, almost.
Very important jobs, yes.
Very important jobs for people to have. How do you protect against false positive? It must happen. And what do you do when somebody has a name like Jane Doe or John Smith?
Yes. So we have this problem used to happen a lot in the background check industry and also with credit bureaus. So with your credit report, it happens a lot. The good news is that we have a dispute process at Checkr. So there is an appeal process. And since the consumer gives consent, you can get a free copy of your background check at any time or get your free background check at checkr.com.
I can get my own background check?
Yes, you can get your own free background check as a consumer.
Really?
Yes.
Wait, you'll do it for free for me?
We'll do it for free. We created a website called betterfuture.com, and I'll tell you more about it.
Yeah.
But overall, so we want everyone to be empowered to see their data, to be able to control and fix it if there's any issue.
Got it.
So if it's not you, you can immediately come to our candidate portal on our website, flag that there's an error. We start a dispute, and within a day or two, we have our team working with you to make sure that we have all of the identity documentation to fix your report. So we take this very seriously because it is a very important job. And actually, this became our mission as a company, is to build a fairer future. And instead of having this industry block people from opportunities, we want background checks to be used in a more balanced way and help people get a fair chance at jobs and other opportunities.
Let me ask you a candid question. You know, I was an investor in Uber. If you didn't, I would tell you in the first 5 minutes of meeting you anyway. But I just basically have a T-shirt now that says I invested in Uber. It's just a joke. It's not a joke. Are the gig economy companies, I don't want to single them out, doing enough to do background checks? Because we do hear about a driver attacking a passenger or following them into their house or stealing from them or taking advantage of somebody who might be inebriated. And it seems to me that the technology companies or anything new gets held to a higher standard because it's new. And let's face it, if you were to write a story about a Domino's delivery driver robbing a house or an ADT security person robbing a house, nobody would write that story. But lo and behold, if it's a DoorDash person or a Postmates, it would be like Postmates has a crime problem. So you get held to a higher standard. That's unfair, I think, to a certain extent. But are they doing enough? Have they done enough historically?
So, I mean, it is a sensitive topic and an issue. What happened is also you have now, I think over 10 million gig workers in the US. So the type of incidents that might happen 1 in a million times happens, will statistically happen. I believe we work closely with all of those companies, and they've definitely invested a lot in research and development and technology to improve safety, to always up the bar. To catch up with regulations. And I think the early days of the gig economy and Uber, there was definitely, a clash and conflict. And you might think maybe they were not doing enough in the early days. But I think today, as public companies and as safety has become the top priority for those platforms, we've seen a lot of investment and innovation. And so with Checkr, with other initiatives, they've started to do, the most in-depth possible background checks in the US. They're rescreening the drivers at least annually.
Rescreening them. They come in for a visit, they talk to them, they make sure that the person is, let's just say, the person who they say they are.
Yeah.
Because that was a big thing in New York. It was kind of a joke because I used to always talk to the taxi drivers, the yellow taxis, because I just thought it was interesting and I like to talk to people. Thus, I have a podcast. It's finally a place for people who talk too much to actually go podcasting. And when I would talk to them, they would say that they would have one cab, one medallion, 4 or 5 people using 2 licenses, and the cab was running 24 hours a day, basically. And it was known that people would kind of rent each other their driver's licenses. And you'd look at the picture and you'd be like, that's not my driver.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a problem that always existed. And again, I think the background checks are, really helpful, but they're not a silver bullet. You cannot predict the future. Even a lot of the crimes happen with people who have never done something bad in the past, first-time offenders.
Yeah.
So
that's why the term first-time offender exists.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it happens so often.
And so we will do the best possible in terms of data and accuracy and really innovate as much as possible, but we're not going to be able to do minority report and predict crimes in the future.
You don't have precogs yet.
We don't have precogs yet.
When do the precogs launch? How is that going?
Next year.
Next year you'll have the precogs. I think we're the only 2 nerds who know what a precog is, sitting in that goo and the ball comes down with the name on it. For those of you who don't know, this incredible Minority Report movie that totally stands up, that predicts everything that's happening right now. Because what they did was I think they went to the MIT Media Lab and consulted with them, and they gave them all the future ideas, and then they, like the fingers, the tapping fingers when Tom Cruise is working on the screen.
Yeah.
All of that was interfaces they were working on at MIT at the time, if I have my history correct. So you're providing this baseline. But let's talk about the term felon. There are people who are felons, who are violent felons. There are people who are felons because they sold a dime bag in a park, as opposed to having a storefront 3 years later called Mad Men with a bunch of yuppies working in it, making $30 an hour.
Yeah. How
does one, a gig economy company, let's not pick a specific one because they're your clients and my investments in some cases. Let's just say, how does a notable gig economy company, without saying the name of it, how would they parse with your information, a felon who did a violent crime, who stole an iPhone, which, I guess could be a felony if you stole a laptop, depending on the cost of it?
I'm not sure. I would have to
look
check with
it up,
the lawyers. But
how do they work on the different levels? And then what's fair? Because we have a criminal justice system where people are supposed to pay the price for their crimes and then come back and be part of society. Those people need the entry-level jobs. I would assume they're, some of them might be MBAs or lawyers and who went to jail, but let's assume that maybe they made a mistake because they didn't have a career or whatever, and now they're coming back into society, and now this is the first job they have, but we're holding the person delivering food on DoorDash or Postmates or pick the service. We won't pick one here. How do they make that decision? And how do you make it in consultation with them? What is your advice to them?
Yes, and I'm super passionate about this topic because this is actually, I think, a big society challenge and justice system issue that is blocking a lot of people from getting back into the workforce, which hurts the GDP and the economy of this country.
Yeah.
But it is a trade-off. It is a trade-off between safety and access to opportunities. And I will tell you how it used to work. So how it used to work is a background check company could not really tell you what level of severity the crime was because there's no standards, there's no structure. So you would get either clear, no record, nothing, or you get a PDF with a bunch of stuff.
So a gun felony was the same as a dime bag felony.
It would just be text, right? Like you would have 2 or 3 pages of legal texts that only a local lawyer would understand. Mm-hmm. What do you think HR teams or recruiters would do?
Yeah, just eliminate the candidate who wants to take a risk.
Exactly, right? Binary decision.
Very binary.
So what we did at Checkr is we started by saying, hey, customers, it's just unfair problem for customers. Our customers can't even really make a fair decision because look at the product and data they have. So what we did is we standardized the types of criminal records in the US. We created about 60 different categories from very minor driving, speeding ticket all the way to murder. So that customers can start to create rules. So they can say, hey, for my driving job, I do care about driving violations and DUI. And so, my insurance is telling me I cannot hire someone that had a DUI in the last 2 years. Let me create that rule. So that is really what Checkr does in terms of technology.
So
that
you're
is
really
the core
parsing
of our product.
that on a detailed level.
Yes.
But somebody with a DUI 10 years ago, maybe we want to forgive them. They've learned their lesson.
Yes. And so then there are guidelines actually from for HR professionals and from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and agencies on how to make those hiring decisions. And so what you're supposed to do is, as an employer, so you for your company, me for my company, Uber for their contractors, you're supposed to have an individual decision that looks at the type of crime, how long ago was it, how old were you when you made this crime? Were you 18 and,
didn't have your frontal lobes completely
exactly.
formed, so you don't have long-term thinking.
How is that related to the job you're doing? And then what evidence do you have that you might have, rehabilitated and learned from your mistakes, etc. Right. So this is what you're supposed to is to look at all of this information to make a fair decision.
You yourself are doing fair chance hiring internally.
We do.
How do you make that decision? Would you, at Checkr, employ somebody who had been convicted of a violent crime? Or certainly you wouldn't hire somebody who had been convicted of a murder 20 years ago, would you?
So we do.
It's your company.
We do fair chance hiring at Checkr. It's our mission to provide a fairer future for people who have made a mistake in the past. And so we really take the law seriously and we try to be the champions of fair chance hiring. So what we do is really we partner with nonprofits, or nonprofits in the Bay Area that are specialized in reentry, in training programs after prison, in helping people get a job and be prepared. And so we have access to a lot of amazing candidates who have worked really hard to, recover from their mistakes and retrain and be ready for the workforce.
It's 5% of your workforce, I understand.
And it's over 5% of our workforce in the company. And
do you have feedback from employees who are not from the criminal justice system, have not made the mistake, that they are in favor of this, Or they don't want to be in the building with people maybe who have done things in the past that they would never do.
Yeah. So I think it's a lot about education because, I think the world and TV and the media really, trains you as like there's either good people or bad people or evil people who are going to do bad things. It's a whole spectrum. Humans are, humans unpredictable and all different. And so we do a lot of education on the topic. It is our core mission now. So anyone joining Checkr actually wants to make a difference, wants to improve the justice system, wants to help people get back into the workforce and are deeply passionate about this topic. So in the early days when we started to Fair Chance, definitely there was some debate in the company and very healthy debates on the risks and the benefits. But today, since we're one of the largest fair chance employer in tech and as a white collar company, I would say we're also one of the most advanced and going to actually educate and teach other companies on how to do it. There's lots of CEOs and the government and people who want to provide second chances. We're very proud of that. Yeah.
All right. When we get back from this quick break, I want you to answer the question. Would you hire somebody who had been convicted of a violent crime or murder to work at Checkr? When we get back on This Week in Startups. If you don't know your numbers, if you're not on top of your numbers, you don't know what's going on in your business. It's just a hodgepodge of a bunch of disparate systems, accounting, inventory, sales. You don't have any ground truth. You don't know what's going on with your business. It's a big, giant, inefficient mess. We know this is true. And you know what? If you don't know your numbers, that's going to hurt your bottom line. You're not going to be able to do forecasting. You might run out of money. You might miss opportunities. And that's where NetSuite by Oracle comes in. It's the business management software that helps you handle every single aspect of your growing business in one easy-to-use cloud platform. NetSuite gives you visibility and control so that you can grow. And it will help you save time and money and remove all those crazy headaches that you're dealing with now. You're going to get all of your sales information, your finance, your accounting, orders, HR instantly on your desktop or on your phone. That's why NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. So here's your call to action. Right now, NetSuite is offering you valuable insights with a free guide called the 7 Key Strategies to Grow Your, not your business, your profits, even better. And you can get this guide right now, netsuite.com/twist. And here it is. I've been reading it. It's awesome. netsuite.com/twist. Go ahead and get it for free. Get that free guide, the 7 Key Strategies to Growing Your Profits. And, some of them, driving down costs, that's another way. Tax, regulation, compliance, you need to know about that. Selling more to your existing customers, aka land and expand. Finding new channels to reach your customers, new revenue streams, and of course, unlocking global markets. So much good stuff in here. Go ahead and get it at netsuite.com/twist. Thanks to NetSuite for supporting independent media like This Week in Startups. Let's get back to this amazing episode. Hey, welcome back. I'm holding my man Daniel to the fire, CEO and co-founder of Checkr. We use it ourselves. It works great. All of our startups use it. It works great. And we're getting into the hard issues here, fair chance hiring. People know I've had the last mile on here and that I'm a big supporter. We help put somebody through training every year. We drop $5,000 a year here. The team at launch donates the money, not just me. So we care about this as well. And I want to just, make it super personal for you, Daniel, because this is the path you've chosen as a founder. Would you hire somebody who had a violent crime 20 years ago in their past to work at Checkr as part of your fair chance hiring?
So it's a hard question. My answer would be it depends.
Okay.
It really depends because
Have you?
So we would consider we're a fair chance employer. So what means like we consider everyone applying to the job.
Okay, you'll consider everybody. Got it.
We will talk and interview and assess the skills of everyone. We're partners with the Last Mile as well.
Great.
We've hired engineers and
Awesome.
It's a great nonprofit.
Great program,
We're supporters. And so we do everything that is prescribed. We do the interview, we assess the skills, we do the background check. We have a frank discussion with HR and legal with the person to understand their story. Have they rehabilitated? Have they retrained? How do they think about the mistakes they've done, etc. So we'd consider it.
Yeah. Maybe not in the last 5 years, because you said time was one of the things and how repentant they are.
It is one of the factors, yes.
Yeah. It's a fascinating topic here in the United States. I get the sense from your accent you're not from the United States.
That's correct.
Where are you from?
I'm from France.
I got that sense. How does a Frenchman look at the justice system in America where we have 3 million people incarcerated. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
3 million, 1% of the country is behind bars. And if you were to look at the adult population, now we're up to, almost 2%. And then if you looked at African Americans and Hispanics getting a disproportionate amount of the sentences and disproportionately long sentences, and there's been a direct correlation, the darker your skin, the longer you're going to jail for the same crime.
Yes.
How
Five
do
times more black people incarcerated than white.
Yeah. And even when you just put them heads up in the studies, because a lot of people like to debate that, maybe certain demographics commit crime or whatever. Putting that aside, which is the third rail of discussions, just heads up, one person stole an iPhone, this person stole an iPhone, this person stole an iPhone. When they do those studies, the sentences are longer for people of color and shorter for people who are white. So it's a completely unfair system. Coming from Europe, where they have a much different view of incarcerating people, do we get it right or wrong here in America? And how do you look at it, having lived in both societies?
Yes, so I don't think there's right or wrong. There's lots of challenges in Europe as well, lots of challenges in the US. It's hard everywhere. So what I would say is, so as a kid, I wanted to be an engineer. I worked at NASA. I wanted to build rockets, robots, like coolest tech possible. Yeah. And then I started this background check company. And the problem you described, I discovered it, 1 or 2 years in the company, this deep social impact and problem. And I think this is actually a much more exciting and rewarding problem to solve, to help millions of people having a fair, justice decision and access to employment and jobs, than building rockets. So I'm deeply passionate about this. And I think background checks are at the heart of the problem. It's very related, right? If you go to jail and you get out, you might get this double punishment that blocks you from recovering and making progress.
How many of these background checks are you doing every day, every month, every year?
We do a lot of them. We do about 1.5 million a month.
1.5 million a month?
Yes. So we have millions of people going through our system.
And at $20 a pop, you guys are doing 9 figures in revenue. Put you on the Soonicorn, almost a unicorn. You raised $100 million in the latest round. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
This year?
It was last year.
Last year. As you start to get to 9 figures in revenue, just founder to founder here, and raise these large amounts of money, is there a pressure to go public now? And how do you think about the public markets in relation to what we saw with Slack, Uber, Spotify, Lyft going public recently? How do you think about it?
Yes, so we don't have a lot of pressure to go public because we're only a 5-year-old company, which is quite faster than maybe other.
5 years to 200 or 300 million, though.
So that's fast growth. Our investors
are
also
tripling revenue year over year.
Not tripling, but we have high growth.
Yeah, more than doubling.
Yes. And our investors are long-term. So we definitely have investors that are long-term focused, that want to build a great large company that is defining its category and even expanding. I mean, we're thinking about expanding beyond background checks because background checks, we're already becoming the leader. I see a lot of opportunity in the gig economy and the future workforce. Everyone has flexible jobs, from the freelancer to the gig worker. I think that's going to require a lot of different software products to manage those enterprises. So I think it's a large opportunity for us. We're building new products. We're growing with our customers. We're starting to think about IPO. I think there's pros and cons, and you have to decide when it's the right time. But it's just another fundraiser event. It's not the end goal.
The only difference with it is you have to show everybody the books. Yes. So here I can poke and prod and try to paint a picture of the scale of your company. When you go public, open kimono, here's everything.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I could say open kimono anymore. There's a language. I need to get a judgment on that. The language police is like, that's a business term. Maybe that's an inappropriate term now. I had the whole discussion about the Chinese wall, which is also known as the firewall, which is the line between editorial and sales. It turns out Chinese people take it as a huge compliment when you say a Chinese wall between two things, because it's the strongest, most durable wall in the world, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
But of course, some snowflakes want to believe that using that term is a charged term. No, that term. I can't speak to open kimono if that term is appropriate anymore, but I can speak to firewall. Let's talk about, when we get back from this quick break, the difference between a gig worker, a freelancer, and a full-time employee, And this big debate we have, should people be allowed to work and set their own hours, set their own price for what they want to get paid, and change the number of hours they work week over week? Or should they be forced to be employees? Or should employers be forced to recategorize them? Because this would be a sea change to everybody who works as a real estate agent, as a cab driver or a livery driver. It would change so many different careers, including white-collar freelancers as well, who would then have to change the way they've chosen to work. I want to understand if you think there is another possibility between gig economy and full-time when we get back on This Week in Startups. Oh my God, LinkedIn Talent Solutions. I love this product. We use it. We got so many great team members using LinkedIn Talent Solutions. There's over 600 million members at LinkedIn. And why do they go there? Well, why do you go there? Why do I go there? The great feed, news, to make connections, to meet people, to share information, maybe to update your resume, your profile page. Well, hiring is so easy that a new hire is made every 8 seconds on LinkedIn. Think about that. And they will get your job in front of the right people at the right time, whether you need hard or soft skills. Maybe you need someone who's a great negotiator. Maybe you need someone who's a great coder. You're going to find all those people. And here is my CMO, Presh, creating a job posting for our new client success manager. And that's a position in our Toronto office. And he sets a daily budget and he sends the ad to find the right candidate. He also puts in some skills needed, writes a description, and adds additional screening questions. And those screening questions are so important. When you write an open-ended question like that, you can really tell who's really a great hire and who is indifferent. You want the person who's going to write 2 paragraphs in one of those open-ended questions. And you can do this all within minutes by going to linkedin.com/unicorn, and you will get $50 off your first job post because you're building a unicorn. And to build a unicorn, you're going to need great team members. You're only as good as your weakest team member. And you need to have great team members. And the way you're going to do that is linkedin.com/unicorn. linkedin.com/unicorn. Get that $50 off your first job post. Terms and conditions do apply because it's such a generous offer. Thanks again to LinkedIn for making a great service that just helps the entire community, and for these generous offers from my community here at This Week in Startups. I really appreciate it. Okay, back to the episode. All right, welcome back. Everybody out there, use Checkr.com. I use it. It's great. Daniel, you've been super candid. I appreciate that. Let's continue the candidness and talk about the existential debate here in the United States of gig economy workers and what rights they should have and how they should be classified. Should gig economy workers be classified or recategorized from freelancers to full-time employees?
So I'm biased on the topic, but I think people love to have flexibility. I think the new generation, a lot of people want to start their own business, be their own boss, work their own hours. People love the flexibility at all levels, all states, all industries. It's incredible. So I think it's very important to keep a flexible work arrangement. I think it would be a mistake to force everyone to be a 9-to-5 employee or have these constraints. I think the challenge is that the low wages. I think the low wages in some of the gig jobs have really pushed people to revolt and complain that their wage is so low that it's very hard to
What do you think those wages are on the low end? Because we do have this debate of, well, if you are working on a Friday night for a driving company, might be surging and there might be 3 calls, 4 calls an hour. You work on the afternoon on a Sunday or a Tuesday night, maybe there's just not as much work and you're reading a book and taking a gig every 45 minutes. So what do you think the right dollar amount is? Should it just equal minimum wage? And what do you think they're actually making? Because this is the thing that I get into this argument with people. If it was less than minimum wage, which I don't buy in any circumstance, they're making under minimum wage because there's a war for all these drivers, a war for all these gig economy workers. And if it did dip below $15 an hour, would they not just go work at the Apple Store or Walmart or Target or those other places that are desperate to get employees? Because they've got an employee shortage. So something's not adding up for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not the expert in how much they're really making, so I wouldn't know. There's studies out there. But I believe in supply and demand. So I believe that over time, supply and demand would stabilize and people would would be in demand. I mean, there is a big demand for workers, you're right. And I hear people who say it's hard for them to make the end of the month, but I hear also other drivers, people who say, I quit my 9 to 5 job, I quit my job as a firefighter or as something else because it worked better for me to be a driver or a delivery person. So I hear both sides. I don't know. I believe that flexibility is very important. People love the flexibility, and I think it will stabilize and supply and demand, and also the push for profitability for those companies. I think will make changes in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that the Lyft and Uber, a lot of people ask me because the stock price is down.
Yeah.
What I think seems to me that private market investors like myself and large hedge funds and the ones who put $100 million, I don't know who led your last round.
T. Rowe Price.
So T. Rowe Price, they want you to grow.
Yeah.
And they're willing, in their very deep experience, to see you have a loss, perhaps even on every transaction or on some transactions, in order to keep the growth going to become the lead candidate. And you buy into that as well. It's called an investment.
Yes.
It's called growth, right? Market share. But the public markets, I think, are sending a very clear message. We would like to see the path to profitability, and we'd like to see it get really close or maybe tip over. And somebody did a really interesting story. They took the losses and the number of rides at Uber and Lyft, and it turned out it was like 40 or 50 cents per ride. So if they just raise the price 40 or 50 cents, they're profitable.
But then the growth might slow down, which is the challenge
Really?
they
You
might
think
be
so?
thinking.
Like, who's not taking their $30 airport ride for $31? Really? I don't think it makes any difference.
Yeah.
In that case.
I agree with you. I mean, I would
Yeah.
be happy to pay everyone to pay a little bit more so that the people can make good wages and those companies can be sustainable because it's a great service. I mean, we all love it, right?
I have a really easy idea for this. I don't know why there's not a third classification, which I'll call full-time gig. So I pick my hours, but I break 40 hours a week. I break 50 hours a week. And if you break the 40 or 50 hours in gig work, those companies and you as the freelancer, because you chose to be a freelancer, contribute to a pool of, I don't know, days off, whatever the benefit is. So that, and you wouldn't record it on a weekly basis because you do have people who take a week off or whatever, and they want that flexibility. So you do it on a quarterly basis. Just take all your hours per quarter. If you're above 600, you get whatever level of benefit. You put in $600, the employer puts in $600 or maybe whatever per hour, and you have this pool to go towards your benefits that are withheld and are tax-free, et cetera. There must be some solution like that available.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, with a third category, which I think is a great idea, or portable benefits in general. I think the companies and the platforms, they want to retain the worker. And so I think they would be willing to contribute some financial amount to the benefits so that the workers can have some type of portable benefits. So I think that's the future. I think over time, hopefully, it will get there.
What are these services you think you could offer to like gig economy workers? Like balancing out their payments or something?
I also talk to drivers like you and workers. I mean, I think...
What do they want?
Some people don't have any safety net. You know, I talk to people who have no car insurance, no health insurance, nothing. So I think that those kind of basic fundamentals, I would think are the priority rather than, 401k matching or retirement investment and things like that.
Yeah, because they're moving up the employment stack. They're going from, there are people who are off the books, which, let's face it, a lot of the economy is still off the books. Even in the United States, you have people who are getting paid just in cash for certain activities. Then you have gig workers who are having some amount taken out of their 1099. And then you have these benefits that could start kicking in. If you provided some sort of membership program where you could get some base level, that could be really effective.
Yeah.
What is going on in other countries in relation to background checks?
Yes,
because you're international.
We're not international
Canada?
yet. Canada, yes.
Okay, so you're international.
We're starting to look at the other countries.
Mexico.
So I think it's fascinating. You have two types of countries for us when you think about the world. There's kind of the Western countries where I'm from, in France, Europe, Australia, very similar trends as the US. And then you have the emerging markets who
India,
are
South
India,
America,
Brazil, Mexico.
Africa.
Yes, growing very quickly. So the gig economy is exploding everywhere.
Yep.
Especially in the emerging markets. It's incredible, the traction and the engagement there. You have different issues. So in the Western countries, there's more privacy regulations. There's not as much culture of doing background checks or having this, more intrusive
So
search.
you might be the first person to do it in that country.
It might be hard to get the data because we can't even get access to criminal records, or the consumer has to go themselves find it. But actually now these countries they're starting to have similar safety issues because it does create new relationships. You are in a car at 3 a.m. with a stranger in the middle of the night, which was not something that would happen in the past.
Yeah. What happened at taxi?
Yeah, but less frequent because, taxis were used only maybe by a few percent of the population. Now millions of people use Uber and food delivery. It's very popular. So it creates new safety situations, and regulators are starting to think, should we put in place background checks? Should we start to have those services? So it's very
India
early.
is actually thinking about that now, yeah.
So that's more for the, European Union. For India and Brazil and Mexico and other countries. In Latin America, you have a lot of crime.
Yeah.
We're seeing some stories that are very bad.
Yeah, sure.
Could be the driver attacking the passenger attacking the driver.
Absolutely.
With a gun, stealing the car, stealing the delivery. It's pretty...
It's gnarly.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. So anyway, big needs. For us, it's complex. We have to look at not expanding too fast and being thoughtful. Some companies have, failed going international too early.
Yeah.
But we're starting to explore the opportunity there.
Yeah, that makes total and complete sense. The thing I've always found interesting about this debate of what's safer, like a taxi or a ride sharing, not to use the word Uber or Lyft, just ride sharing, because there's many countries around the world doing it now, or many companies around the world doing it. In ride sharing, the person is registered. They have a smartphone, which has their location, which has a camera on it and a microphone, and minute by minute, the location of the car. In a taxi, you don't have any of that. The location of the taxi is unknown. So a taxi cab driver who chose to attack a passenger, or a passenger who was attacking a taxi driver, nobody would know. They could be somewhere in the middle of, some bog or something in the sticks, and somebody's going to get murdered, driver or passenger, horribly. Yeah. Whereas with Uber or Lyft or Didi or any of these ride-hailing services, at least you have that. And I think cameras should be mandatory. Are cameras mandatory now in these in terms of safety?
I don't think so.
That seems like the no-brainer to me. I know in Vegas they were mandatory because you had so many people in Vegas getting inebriated and behaving badly. Just to protect the drivers, the camera seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's a good idea. No, I agree with you. I think crimes have always existed in cabs. It's just that it would never make the news. It would be local news and no one would know about it.
And if the cab driver got murdered, nobody cared. Let's be honest. Like, people just didn't even report on it. They're like, oh, who cares? Like, some cab driver got murdered. I remember in Brooklyn, it was never on the cover.
Yeah.
Passenger gets murdered on the cover. And they would call it the Lyft or DoorDash murder. They wouldn't even... Cab driver gets murdered. It's, B17 in the New York Times.
Yeah.
Hey, so what's the roadmap here in terms of scaling the company from this point forward? It's got to be a little mind-blowing for you to go from just being a software engineer for a couple of years at companies.
Yep.
Right?
It's been crazy, yes.
Yeah. What position were you in the companies? Like the 7th or 8th position?
Where?
Previously you were at Deliv.
At Deliv, I was employee number 5 or 6.
Got it. And Mogrit?
And Mogrit, I was maybe 20.
Yeah. So you go from that 20 or the 5th position moving up, and then you start your own company, and now it's, hey, listen, you're here on the next Unicorns. Kind of mind-blowing. How did you make that jump from the software engineer being told what to do, grabbing jobs and stories off of the Trello board or wherever, GitHub, and, clocking in points and trying to impress your CTO, to then taking control of the steering wheel and being the captain of the plane?
Yeah. So
how did you do it?
I didn't like to be told what to do. You
were functionally unemployable.
So I would often disagree with my CTO or with the direction of the company. I would didn't like the lack of transparency, being told what to do by the leadership would not really explain why or what's the financial situation. There's board, executive meetings in a closed room when you don't know what's happening. I was always curious. I wanted to know, why are we doing this? What's the opportunity? What are our customers saying? So So those are kind of the motivations of why I started my company. I was kind of a rebel and I didn't like to be told what to do, and I thought I could do better. So I was a little bit, I guess, selfish and a little bit arrogant, but that's okay.
No, I think you had a chip on your shoulder, and it is definitely a change in business today. I assume now that you're the man in the executive office with the board, you are much more transparent with your team members and you tell them why you're asking them to do stuff?
So I always had challenges with the cultures in different companies I've been. So a lot of the culture, I tried to make it transparent, humble, with good social connection between employees, with drive and grit and passion. So all of those things that I was lacking and I wish I had as an employee, we tried to put that in the culture of our company.
So you're doing all the things you didn't get, you're now putting there. What's this French word, humble, you said? You were a humble? Humble. Yeah, I've never heard this word. What is this in Silicon Valley? You're humble. Why is it important to be humble, do you think, as the leader? Unpack that.
It's very important. I think you have the old school of CEOs like Steve Jobs and maybe Bill Gates and dictator CEOs, and that used to work. Or even more recent examples. I'm not going to put too many names, but
you could say Travis.
It used to work, right? The army style, top down, but I don't think it works anymore. I think it's
why.
Because I think employees have so many options that they can go somewhere else. They can say, hey, if you always tell me what to do, I can go and do my own thing.
Right.
Start my own startup or go to this other company. I think that's one of the reasons. People, the new generation, it doesn't want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And it's not the right thing to do. And it's also not the most exciting job. I mean, people want ownership, right? They'd rather you trust them for a problem to solve and you say, hey, I trust you, Jason. Here is the challenge. We need to make $5 million. Can you find the plan? And I'll challenge you. But if it's a good plan, you can go and run it. And so I think that's more motivating.
There's two key things in that. You're giving them the ability to take on the challenge and do it the way they see fit. But you also said $5 million. So you put a goal. So if you want that responsibility and you want that autonomy, you need to hit the number. If you don't hit the number, then you don't get the autonomy. And we have to go back to the old way.
Yes.
And you need to be involved as a CEO.
Yes. And that is the hard balance as a CEO. I'm still learning how to navigate. How do you navigate the grit and the push and having aggressive goals and growth and being the best and excellence with being humble, being patient, letting people make mistakes, and really take care of all your employee base. You have to do both, kind of the backbone and the strength and the heart and the care. Yeah. If you can mix those, I think it's going to be a great company.
I assume people who are overachievers and driven and who get stuff done, you don't need to worry about. The people who are super lame, who want the responsibility and just fall on their face and don't even show up for work and don't have hard work ethic, well, you just cut them. That's an easy decision. What do you do as a manager now that you've moved from the 20th slot to the 5th, now to the 1st? You got the captain's seat. How do you deal with the people in between? The people who are not getting the results, but they're putting in the effort. They're not getting the result that you need. They're making mistakes with your company, maybe with your customers, and maybe annoying those people who are the high performers. How do you deal with the okay to good people? The great and the excellent, that's an easy managerial task. And the bad ones, that's an easy one. It's those okay to good that are challenging. What have you learned in these 5 years now that you are the captain about dealing with those tweeners?
Yeah. So, I mean, at Checkr, really, we're open. We can give anyone an opportunity. You might not have the right education, the right background, the right experience. We'll give everyone an opportunity and a chance. And we don't hire only Ivy League, and we're really open and inclusive, which is great. People from all backgrounds. But we are a high-performance culture. We hire the best. We want to win in our market. We want to be the number one. And so it's okay if you don't know and you want to learn. You can start as okay, but you need to move to great. If you stay as okay, and what you described was not okay, was below the average. Yeah. And you cannot keep below average if you want to be a high-growth company and defining. And so you have to make hard decisions.
Yeah. And I think as you get older and you've been through this before, you realize it's the compassionate thing to do because a startup is not for everybody. and winning and being the lead company that beats the incumbents, that's also not for everybody.
No, it's a war. It's a battle. It's hard. You have a lot of pain. And it's demotivating for people who work their ass off and want to win. So you need to keep that culture, but at the same time, care, be humble, no ego. We work as a team. We win as a team.
Yeah.
But we want to win, yes.
All right. Well, listen, congratulations on the great success from founding in 2014 now. 9 figures in revenue. I don't know the exact number, but over 1.5 million background checks a month. And we know that, hey, they cost $20 each. So 400 plus employees ain't cheap either. Headquarters are in San Francisco and Denver. How'd you wind up in Denver? You picked that because it was low cost of living, awesome life with a lot of educated people?
Pretty much. It's a great place to live. It's well connected. Our people wanted to relocate there. We have a great team there. It's a great spot. There? I spent time there. I was there 2 weeks ago. I love it.
Yeah? You do a little skiing now?
I will go this winter, yeah.
You're going to ski there this winter? Yeah. Not like France, or maybe better?
I haven't been yet, so we'll test this
winter.
I see.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be as good.
Not as good as the Alps?
I don't know. I haven't skied the Alps, but my understanding is once you ski the Alps, it ruins everything that's ruined, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it's going to be great.
All right. Listen, continued success. Congratulations. And if you're out there, we use the product. We love it here at Launch. A lot of my startups use it, past and present. And it's super affordable. You can get up and running today, right now. Just go to checkr.com, Checkr. And we will see you all next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.